Good people on the quest for good content. What is good? Welcome to another installment of You Can't Rap Better Than, where the goal is to take a verse that's celebrated, maybe under-discussed in some cases, but all in all, just superb verses, highlight our favorite aspects of them and really dive deep. I'm Bill Farrow, joining you today, flying solo with no bandana. I think anybody who watches knows I usually have something on my head, but today I'm just letting it shine, letting the fresh cut, the buzz cut go. Be nice in the comments about that. But yeah, thanks for joining us for another installment. This series seems to be doing pretty well, so thank you for the support up to this point. Now, with all that intro out the way, today's verse that we're going to be talking about is Freeway's song What We Do, featuring Jay-Z and Beanie Sigel, and we're talking about Freeway's verse, maybe the most famous verse of his career, and one of the consummate modern verses in the early 2000 hip-hop. This album came out in 2003 on Philadelphia Freeway. So what I love about this particular verse here is I believe you cannot rap better than Freeway does on What We Do, because you cannot channel the mix of desperation and hunger that it takes to survive as well as Freeway does on this verse, while also incorporating the sense of duality that he exhibits throughout this verse, from basically doing wrong so he can try to do right by those around him and his immediate loved ones, community, etc., while also playing with this dichotomy of hot and cold, where he basically breaks down like the socioeconomic plight of many, many spaces in America, maybe subsequently the world, but definitely America. So let's just hop in. I'm not necessarily going to go line by line. I think what makes this verse stand out to me most is that ferocity that I'm talking about, or that I alluded to, that desperation. Desperation often has like a negative connotation, but I think in this verse, desperation is like the call to action. When your back is against the wall, but as many people have heard before, it's like you either kind of shrivel or you kind of swing. And I don't know if anybody's like voice indicates that they are throwing as many punches hard as Freeway is to get himself in the right circumstance to change his life, as he's articulating in his verse. The tension in Freeway's voice via the delivery, the way he carries certain lines into the next bar and kind of overcrowds certain bars with breath control, spaces in his lyrics, etc., emulates like the physical exhaustion of hustling to try to do right by your loved ones, and tying that back into this motif of hunger, like I mentioned earlier, it's just like truly a masterclass. It's just like flow state in real time. I would have loved to see him record this verse in real time to kind of really capture the energy of what he was doing in the studio. But let's talk about a couple bars. We'll start with like the iconic opening, right? We still hustle till the sun comes up, crack a 40 when the sun goes down. It's a cold winter. Immediately we get introduced to this interplay and this dichotomy of hot and cold. Y'all niggas better bundle up. And I bet it be a hot as summer. Grab the onion. Yes, the rock is down. You hot now, listen up. This transition on building momentum, right? When it's cold, you got nothing going on. When it's hot, you got something going on. And when you got something going on, you need to make sure that you keep that momentum, because, next line, the cops' whole purpose is to lock us down. Immediately talking about like the law enforcement system and the law enforcement mechanism used to enforce, subjugate, disenfranchise, as has been historically recorded in this country's history, right? They'll throw away the key, but without this drug shit, your kids ain't got no way to eat. And we've transitioned into this motif of hunger and this association with cold being hungry and hot being on, and hot being the mechanism for growth, change, friction, momentum, velocity forward is at least how I'm going to interpret it. I'm trying not to overanalyze, but I do want to show you essentially how I'm thinking about these verses when they come to mind, right? Because I do think a lot of these people maybe don't get enough credit for how they structure a lot of these artists, a lot of these rappers don't get enough credit for how they structure their bars and their word choices and the ideas that they execute, right? That's why we love hip hop so much, right? So your kids got no way to eat. The familial obligations that exist and the undercurrent of love and affection and care that many of these people operate with, because the next bar is, we still trying to see mom smiling. And then we go back into this dichotomy, right? The desperation associated with keeping these positive emotions. Because when the teeth start showing and your stomach start growling, all of a sudden we're back into cold and hungry. then the heat start flowing. If you from the hood, I know you feel me, keep going, right? We just went from hot to cold again because the emotions change on a dime when you're from these environments that Freeway is from. I'm not from those environments. I know some people who were from. In some ways, I was adjacent to some of these circumstances and dip my toe in every now and then, but thankfully never had to go full-fledged and full in. Let's keep going. If a sneak start leaking and the heat stop working, we're back to cold. Then the heat start working, all of a sudden he's got to get his tool, he's got to get his piece, right? I'm a rob me a person. These are the circumstances on what it takes to get out of cold, to get out of hunger, right? Catch a nigga sleeping while he's out in the open, and I'm gonna get him. Keep flowing, right? For the sake of catering, providing, showing, and giving the love that I feel for my loved ones, I got to do the exact opposite to try to create some momentum and movement. This is like the desperation that I'm talking about, the call to action, the forward momentum, the admission that even though what we do is wrong, kind of that one bar hook, is a byproduct of like self-awareness, but still enacting and making the choices that I have to make because these are the circumstances that I live with, right? But then still keeping a higher consciousness and a higher sense of altruism in the mix of all of this dichotomy, this hot and cold, this hunger and being satiated, this safety that we all long for, and how it's not consistently readily available, right? Because the next bar is, we got to raise our kids while we living. Make $1 million off a record, bail my niggas out of prison, fuck a Bentley or a Lexus, just my boys in the squatter, nigga talking reckless, then I hit him with the Smith & Wesson for maybe the gun aficionados or lack thereof watching, but I'm never snitching, I'm a rider, and then we go back to it. If my kid's hungry, snatch the dishes out your kitchen, I'll be wild until they pick me out of lineup. Another callback to the law enforcement mechanism and apparatus that exists in this country to try to basically stop what Freeway and people like him are doing, because options are essentially limited and you have to do what you have to do to get right and make your loved ones whole, fed, warm, safe, healthy, satiated, loved, etc., etc. This duality, this tipping of the scales is so interesting to me. And great. It all sounds cool as hell. It all sounds fly, but like these are pretty like desperate and dark circumstances. And I don't want anybody to like lose the emotion that goes into somebody's headspace to make these kind of decisions to get right, right? We keep the nines tucked, chop dimes up, rap about it, wild out, fuck niggas up. Or excuse me, we keep nines tucked, chop dimes up, rap about it, wild out, fuck niggas up, laugh about it. I'm not trying to visit the morgue, but Freeway, move out till I sit with the Lord. You know, this is going to continue. This is a byproduct of who I am, at least how I'm interpreting it. Freeway, move out till I sit with the Lord, till I get my shit together, clean up my sins. Freeway got it in like 10 in the morning, and I can get it to you like 10 while you yawning, man. Still deliver the order, man. And I ain't talking about chicken and gravy, man. I'm talking about bricks or yayo, halves and quarters, 4 1/2 of hash. You do the math. These are the mechanisms, right, to get whole and get fed. I just think this motif is so interesting. Hearing rappers from time to time really dive into this sense of hunger, whether it's ambition, literally trying to eat, literally trying to provide and satiate. I won't go too far down because the verse is essentially over, but basically you see the total emotion, the total weight of Freeway's decisions throughout the course of the verse, and somehow always wraps it up in this bow of like this socioeconomic lens and basically explains what happens when people are physically hungry enough to move towards action. I think I might have said this at some point in the channel's history. Again, we're small. I don't expect people to necessarily remember it, but I've said like the key mechanism to a lot of revolution in the modern sense as we live today is America is a country built on convenience. So it's pretty easy to get stuff. Naturally, that's what convenience is. But when you have things conveniently available to you, there's a sense of apathy that develops. And so you're not necessarily called to action. So the mechanism that's really going to move people towards a broader sense of change that this country seems to be working towards, my example is people need to be physically hungry enough and not know where their next meal is going to come from so they actually get moved to action. And this verse is basically the embodiment of that, right? This interplay of hot and cold perfectly encapsulating the highs and lows of the means to do right by doing wrong. The sun comes up, the sun goes down, right? The heat stops working, so the heat starts working. You know what I mean? The heat stops working cold, so my heat starts working because I'm a rob me a person. because I got to make results happen for my loved ones, right? Tying that into the motif of hunger, as you've heard me say multiple times in this explanation or this dive. And then these are the transgressions that we have to do to literally feed ourselves, even though what we do is wrong. This is an admission. This is a cleansing of the spirit, right? But Freeway, move out till I sit with the Lord. Like, this is how it's going to be until I transition to the other side. These are my confessions, in a sense. So there's like a biblical and religious aspect to the verse as well, right? Yeah, it's really crazy how much information and detail he really packs in, all while sounding cool as hell and making desperation and ferocity and the ferocity necessary to like turn water into wine, not to tie it back to the biblical, but like make a miracle out of desperate situations to do right by his loved ones, is just like an amazing chest out, like swagger filled, bravado stomping, iconic verse. And that's why I think you can't necessarily rap better than, or you can't rap better than Freeway did on What We Do, because these combinations of factors are so uniquely packaged that I do think it's like incredibly, incredibly difficult to replicate. There may be better verses by better artists under better circumstances, but that desperation, that ferocity, that interplay between hot and cold, fed and hunger, and all wrapped up in this bow while still somehow talking about socioeconomic policy and wrapping it up in a confessional and saying these are the maneuvers I have to make to do right by my loved ones. It's like basically flawless, man. So that's why I think you cannot rap better than Freeway did on this verse. Everything kind of comes together beautifully over the course of, I think it's like 100-second verse, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, don't quote me. So as always, let me know what you think. I was a little bit more free form, a little bit less annotated today, but these are the things that were kind of hitting me in my spirit and my soul. So hope you enjoy it. The usual YouTube asks, right? Engage in the ways that you see fit, pass it along, like it, make fun of the fact that my hair is short, whatever it is. The engagement helps. Just be nice, we hope. And keep supporting Jordan as he builds out this thing, man. I'm just a small piece of what hopefully turns into a much bigger thing. And we appreciate all the support because, hey, man, the more you support, the more we get to do this. The more we get to do this, the more we feel whole ourselves. So it's like this symbiotic relationship, as y'all know. But in the meantime, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Agree with me, disagree with me. I appreciate the fact that you stayed. And I will see you on the next installment of You Can't Rap Better Than. This installment of You Can't Rap Better Than was dedicated to Freeway's verse off What We Do, featuring Jay-Z and Beanie Sigel off the Philadelphia Freeway album released in 2003. Thank y'all for joining. Catch you on the next one. Appreciate all the support. Peace.